You don't deserve a penny. My sister said it without raising her volume. The words were shaped carefully, placed on the conference table between us like an exhibit. We were seated inside our father's estate attorney's office. Walnut table, closed blinds, filtered afternoon light. A legal pad rested in front of each of us. The trustee sat at the head, hands folded over a slim folder. She continued, listing observations rather than accusations. I had left the city for 3 years. I hadn't attended every quarterly family meeting. I had declined to join the company's board. In her view, those decisions translated into disinterest. Disinterest, she implied, translated into forfeiture. Our uncle stared at the polished table. The paralegal typed without expression. My sister adjusted her sleeve and concluded that I had always been dependent, that I contributed nothing, that the estate should reflect contribution. I did not respond. I aligned the edge of my pen with the margin of my notebook and watched the trustee turn one page inside the folder. The clock on the wall read 2:14 p.m. The reading had not formally begun. Before we continue, if you value clear thinking in complicated family situations, you can subscribe. If you've ever been judged before anyone reviewed the documents, you may understand this room. Have you ever noticed how conclusions are often announced before facts are confirmed? The trustee cleared his throat and adjusted his glasses. The meeting proceeded. My sister believed the outcome was obvious. From her perspective, she had remained physically present. She worked alongside our father during the final years of his life. She attended investor meetings, holiday dinners, medical appointments. Visibility, in her view, equaled legitimacy. I had taken a different route. I built my career outside the family structure. I declined salary from the company. I refused board membership twice. When our father offered to transfer shares early, I asked him to delay. To my sister, those choices appeared like distance. The estate, as originally drafted, named us equal beneficiaries. 50% each. Real estate holdings, controlling shares, liquid reserves. Straight division. That was the framework everyone remembered. What they overlooked was timing. 6 months before his death, our father amended the trust. The amendment was recorded properly, witnessed properly, filed properly. But it was not widely discussed. My sister assumed that because she had operational knowledge of the company, she also had structural authority. She believed leverage came from familiarity. She believed proximity to our father during his illness strengthened her standing. The extended family agreed silently. They saw me as peripheral, present at holidays, absent from operations. Independent income suggested I did not need inheritance. Independence, in their view, reduced entitlement. No one considered that independence can also remove influence. Their confidence was procedural, not emotional. They referenced the prior draft of the trust. They referenced standard equal distribution. They referenced what Dad always said. They did not reference the final amendment. When my sister stated that I had no claim, she wasn't improvising. She believed the math supported her. She believed the trustee would confirm the standard distribution, and that her moral framing would reinforce it. She mistook silence for weakness. She mistook absence from meetings for absence from planning. She mistook restraint for disengagement. I allowed those interpretations to remain uncorrected. 2 weeks earlier, the trustee had emailed both of us requesting confirmation of attendance for the formal reading. Attached to the message was a neutral line. Please review the updated trust instrument prior to the meeting. My sister replied with a single sentence confirming availability. I downloaded the document. The amendment was concise, 3 pages inserted into the larger instrument. It modified oversight authority under specific triggering behaviors. It did not alter beneficiary percentages directly. It altered control. I printed the amendment and read it twice. Then I cross-referenced it with the original trust provisions. The language was careful. If any beneficiary attempted to coerce, intimidate, publicly contest, or obstruct the trustee during the distribution process, oversight of the entire estate would temporarily transfer to the alternate successor trustee named in the amendment. The alternate successor trustee was me. Not ownership. Not reallocation of funds. Oversight. Control of sequencing. Control of timing. Control of approvals. The clause required documentation of the behavior and confirmation by the acting trustee. It did not require my objection. It required evidence. When I finished reading, I placed the document back into its envelope. I did not call my sister. I did not mention the clause during casual conversations about the upcoming meeting. Preparation does not require announcement. At the office that afternoon, My sister assumed I had skimmed nothing. She interpreted my stillness as confusion. I watched her lean forward in her chair and press her argument. The trustee continued turning pages. Interrupting would have paused the momentum. If I had referenced the amendment prematurely, the tone of the meeting would have shifted. Accusations would have become cautious. Statements would have been edited. Documentation requires clarity. The trustee needed observable conduct. The clause was behavioral, not theoretical. People say more when they think they've already won. I kept my hands folded and allowed the statements to complete themselves. The trustee began summarizing the estate inventory. Before he reached the amendment section, my sister interrupted. She stated that efficiency required immediate acknowledgement of equal division. She suggested that prolonged review would only delay asset transition. She asked whether signatures could be prepared in advance. The trustee reminded her that formal review would proceed in order. She leaned back, then forward again. She referenced the years she had worked beside our father. She described the operational strain she carried during his illness. She implied that I had avoided responsibility while she absorbed it. The tone remained measured, but the content sharpened. She questioned whether I intended to contest anything. She asked if I planned to create complications. She mentioned that legal delays could reduce estate value. The paralegal continued typing. My sister's language shifted from explanation to assertion. She said that Dad had always trusted her judgment in business matters. She said oversight naturally belonged to the person most involved. She asked the trustee to confirm that distribution authority would align with practical contribution. The trustee replied that authority followed the document. She placed both palms flat on the table. "Then let's not waste time," she said. "She doesn't deserve a penny beyond what's already written." The word deserve lingered. She added that if I attempted to interfere, she would challenge the distribution legally. She referenced her attorney. Whether retained or hypothetical was unclear. She stated that obstruction would not be tolerated. Each sentence landed cleanly in the quiet room. I tracked the sequence. Time, 2:37 p.m. Statement, assertion of sole practical authority. Statement, preemptive accusation of interference. Statement, threat of contest. The trustee's pen paused briefly above his notes. I remained still. The amendment outlined 3 triggers. First, documented coercion directed at another beneficiary during formal proceedings. Second, public contest or threat of contest prior to completion of internal review. Third, attempts to pressure the trustee into altering sequencing outside documented protocol. If any occurred, oversight authority transferred automatically upon trustee confirmation. Oversight meant review control over asset liquidation, distribution timing, and discretionary approvals. The purpose, as written in a brief preface, was to preserve stability. Our father had added a handwritten note beneath the amendment summary. Process protects value. The symbolic object in the room was not dramatic. It was the trustee's digital recorder, placed beside his folder. A small red light blinked steadily. The meeting was being archived. No one referenced it. The trustee proceeded to the amendment section. He read the introductory language without emphasis. My sister shifted in her chair but did not interrupt. When he reached the trigger clause, he paused long enough to adjust his glasses. He reread one sentence for clarity. Then he continued. I watched the red light on the recorder blink at consistent intervals. After the amendment was read, the room did not change immediately. My sister exhaled once softly. She said the clause was clearly intended to prevent extreme behavior. She clarified that nothing she had said qualified as coercion. She described her comments as practical efficiency. The trustee nodded without agreement. He reviewed his notes. The silence extended longer than before. Papers shifted lightly as the paralegal organized attachments. Outside the office, a phone rang and stopped. My sister glanced at me, expecting reaction. There was none. She repeated that delay would only complicate tax timing. She suggested that immediate signature would demonstrate unity. The trustee closed the folder. He said he would step out briefly to confirm recording timestamps. The red light stopped blinking. The door closed behind him. My sister allowed herself a small smile. She believed procedure had been satisfied. I watched the second hand on the wall clock move from 2:52 to 2:53. The trustee returned with the recorder in hand. He resumed his seat and placed the device beside the folder. In reviewing the recorded statements, he began, I am required to assess whether any triggering behaviors occurred under Section 14C of the amended trust. My sister straightened. He continued evenly. At 2:37 p.m., there was a direct statement asserting that one beneficiary did not deserve allocation beyond predetermined writing. This was accompanied by a declaration of intent to challenge distribution if procedural review continued. He turned one page. Additionally, there was a request to accelerate signature outside the documented sequencing of asset review. His tone did not change. Under the amendment dated March 3, oversight authority transfers temporarily to the alternate successor trustee upon confirmation of such conduct. He looked up briefly. I confirm that the threshold has been met. The words were not loud. Effective immediately, oversight of the estate transitions to the named alternate successor trustee. He glanced at me. That is you. No one spoke. He continued. This does not alter beneficiary percentages. It alters control of sequencing and approval until distribution concludes. He slid the primary folder across the table toward me. The red light on the recorder blinked again. My sister did not shout. She blinked once and asked for clarification. The trustee repeated the relevant clause. She said her comments were contextual, not coercive. She stated that disagreement did not equal intimidation. The trustee acknowledged her perspective and referenced the exact wording of her statements. He noted that the clause did not require malicious intent, only documented pressure or threat of contest prior to review completion. She asked whether oversight meant I could alter distribution. He answered no. She asked whether I could delay indefinitely. He answered that oversight required adherence to fiduciary duty and reasonable timelines. She asked whether she could appeal the activation. He answered that internal review would proceed first, and any external challenge would be subject to the same clause provisions. Her breathing changed slightly. She looked at our uncle, who avoided eye contact. She said this was disproportionate. The trustee replied that the amendment was drafted by our father and executed voluntarily. She asked why she had not been informed specifically about this addition. The trustee said all beneficiaries received notice of amendment filing. Confirmation receipts were on record. She did not respond to that. I opened the folder and reviewed the asset index. Oversight required signatures on 3 immediate decisions: property appraisal scheduling, interim dividend release timing, and authorization of document copies to financial institutions. I signed the appraisal scheduling first. The trustee initialed beside my signature. My sister watched without speaking. The structure of the meeting shifted. Questions were now directed to me regarding sequencing preference. I answered briefly, referencing the written guidelines. No commentary. No interpretation. When my sister attempted to revisit her earlier statements, the trustee redirected to agenda order. The mechanical nature of the process continued. Documents were stamped with the date. Copies were distributed. Each action required my review signature. She asked once more whether oversight would revert. The trustee confirmed it would revert upon completion of distribution, provided no further triggers occurred. The remainder of the meeting proceeded in subdued coordination. Her earlier certainty had depended on assumption of control. Control had shifted without confrontation. At 4:11 p.m., the trustee declared the session adjourned. He outlined the next procedural steps: appraisal within 14 days, financial reconciliation within 30, final distribution scheduling thereafter. I placed the signed documents back into the folder and secured it with the provided clasp. My sister gathered her belongings slowly. No one referenced the earlier statements. The paralegal handed each of us a stamped summary of the activation notice. File updated. Authority recorded. We exited the office separately. The hallway was quiet. The clock in the reception area read 4:16 p.m. Oversight did not feel like victory. It felt administrative. The amendment existed because our father anticipated instability during transition. He designed the clause to discourage pressure before review. It functioned as written. Preparation required reading the document in full. Restraint required allowing statements to complete themselves. Procedure required documentation. The estate will divide equally when the final signatures are complete. Percentages remain unchanged. Control, for a defined period, rests with the person who did not interrupt. The recorder preserved the sequence. The timestamp confirmed the trigger. The trustee applied the clause. Nothing more. Accuracy does not argue. It activates. The file reflects that at 2:37 p.m., specific language was used. At 3:02 p.m., oversight transferred. The record is precise. And precision does not negotiate.